I never used to dread Christmas. For most of my life, it was the one time of year I felt normal. Why I could sit with my family, drink cheap cider from mismatched mugs, and pretend for a few hours that the world wasn't as cold or cruel as I knew it could be. My mother would hum along to those old scratchy records she refused to throw away. Crooners singing carols through the static, like ghosts trying to be cheerful. And my dad would shuffle around the kitchen, pretending he knew what he was doing with a turkey. But that was years ago. Long before everything changed. Long before I learned what it really felt like to be afraid. Not of the dark. Not of being alone. But of the truth hiding behind a familiar face. I should start with the year it all began. The last Christmas I ever spent in that house. It was December 20th. The air outside cold enough to sting. The kind of cold that gets inside you and refuses to leave. I remember the sound of the wind that day. How it scraped against the siding like claws. I had driven up from Indianapolis after my shift ran late. I was exhausted, still wearing my badge clipped to my jacket. It was supposed to be a temporary job. Mall security. While I figured out what to do with my life. But during the holidays, everything feels temporary anyway. My parents' house sat at the edge of a wooded hill. The trees bare and black against the gray sky. When I pulled up, the place looked smaller than I remembered. Almost swallowed by the forest around it. The Christmas lights my mother put up were flickering. Half the strand dead. The others blinking out of sync. As if struggling to stay alive. I didn't think much of it then. Looking back, I wonder why I didn't notice how wrong everything felt. My mom answered the door before I even knocked. Like she had been standing there, waiting. She hugged me too tight. Her fingers trembling, just enough for me to feel. She looked tired. Tired in a way I couldn't quite name. Dark circles under her eyes. A smile that kept slipping. A glance over her shoulder, again and again. I asked if everything was okay. She said of course, and ushered me inside the warm house. That somehow still felt drafty. My dad was in his armchair, staring at the muted TV as if hypnotized. He turned when he heard me, but didn't get up right away. Just watched me for a few seconds, with this strange mixture of relief and something else. Something I didn't want to think about at the time. He finally stood, hugged me, said he was glad I made it before the snow hit. That was all. But his hand lingered on my shoulder. Just a little too long. We sat in the living room. My mom bringing plates of reheated dinner. My dad pretending to be hungry. I tried talking about work. About the crowds. The ridiculous things people try to steal. Dozens of scented candles. A holiday ham. Even a damn plastic Christmas tree. But neither of them laughed. Usually, they would. They were listening. Not to me. To the house. Every creak. Every shift in the walls. Like they were waiting for something. I joked. Okay, what's going on? Did you guys forget how to act around people or what? My mom glanced at my dad. My dad looked at the hallway. And for a second, just a fraction of a second, I felt something cold slide down my spine. But they waved it off. Just tired. Holiday stress. I wanted to believe them. I needed to. I went upstairs to my old room. The stairs groaned. Nothing new. But the air felt different. Heavy. Still. Like the house was holding its breath. My room was the same as when I was 18. Except for one thing. The window. The lock was snapped. Not old. Not rusted. Snapped. Metal bent inward. From force. And the scratches. Thin, straight, deliberate. Like something had tried to pry it open. Before finally breaking the lock. Not an animal. Animals don't make marks like that. Something had tried to get in. I called down to my dad. Asked if something happened to the window. A pause. Too long. Then. Probably just rust. That old thing's been sticking for years. It wasn't rust. He knew it wasn't rust. But I let it go. For the moment. Later. I went downstairs. They were whispering. The moment they heard me, they stopped. Mom shoved a plate of cookies at me. Talked about some old memory. A deflection. I felt like a stranger in my own house. That night. Long after we'd said goodnight. I lay in bed staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling. Trying. And failing. To shake the unease twisting in my stomach. Then I heard it. From the hallway. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. One step. Then another. Then a pause. As if someone was listening. My heart pounded so loud. I almost thought the footsteps were matching it. But they weren't coming from my parents' room. Not from their end of the hall. They were right outside my door. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then. Breathing. Not mine. Not my parents'. Slow. Too slow. Almost like someone was trying to match their breath to mine. I got out of bed. Moved to the door. Hand on the knob. Click. The moment the latch clicked, the breathing stopped. I yanked the door open. Empty hallway. But the air was warm. As if someone had just been there. I checked the house. Nothing. No movement. No sound. But I wasn't alone. I knew it. I felt it. When I went back upstairs. I saw them. Footprints. Bare. Small. Too small for my dad. Too long for my mom. Impressions in the carpet. Leading away from my door. Toward the stairs. One print overlapped another. Shifted slightly. As if someone had stepped there twice. Once coming toward my door. Once going back. I locked my door. Sat on the edge of the bed. Staring at the broken window lock. At the scratches. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Because that was the moment I knew. Something was wrong in that house. Something my parents weren't telling me. Something that had climbed through my window. And stood outside my bedroom door. Listening. To me. Breathe. I stayed locked in my room until the sky began to brighten. But not once did I hear my parents move. No pipes. No footsteps. No doors opening or closing. Just the constant, suffocating stillness of the house. It was the kind of silence that makes you doubt your own senses. Like maybe the world outside had stopped existing. While you sat there waiting for something. The sun hadn't fully risen yet. But there was enough gray morning light leaking through the broken window lock. For me to see the faint imprints on the carpet again. They hadn't shifted. Hadn't faded. As if whatever left them had weight. Real weight. I finally forced myself up. My legs shaky like I'd run miles. Instead of just sat there the whole night. I told myself I had to talk to my parents. I needed answers. And I needed them now. All those strange looks. The whispered conversations. The fear they were trying and failing to hide. I wasn't imagining it. But the moment I opened my door, an awful smell hit me. Not strong. Not overwhelming. Just wrong. It was faint. Like cold sweat mixed with wet dirt. Something you'd smell in a crawl space. No one had opened in years. Instinctively, my eyes went to the footprints again. They weren't fresh. They'd been made hours ago. But now something about them felt different. Like they anchored that smell to the hallway somehow. A reminder that someone had been close enough to touch me while I slept. I made myself walk downstairs, gripping the railing so tightly. My knuckles ached. The house was dim and cold. My parents always woke early. My mom would put coffee on. My dad would turn on the radio. But the kitchen was dark. Quiet. I found them both in the dining room. And the moment I saw their faces, I stopped. My dad looked like he hadn't slept at all. Eyes bloodshot. Shoulders slumped. As if he were carrying something heavy. My mom sat across from him, with a half-empty mug of coffee. She wasn't drinking. She was staring at the table, her fingers tapping rhythmically, almost compulsively, like she was trying not to scream. When they noticed me, they both straightened too quickly. My mom tried to smile, but her lips twitched, and the expression collapsed instantly. "Morning," my dad said, his voice hoarse. I didn't sit. I stood there and said, "What happened to my window?" They froze. Not startled, but the heavy, resigned stillness of two people who'd been waiting for this moment and praying it wouldn't come. My mom looked at my dad again. My dad looked at the front door. Neither looked at me. "I asked you a question," I said louder. "What happened to my window? Why is the lock broken? Why are there scratches on the sill?" My mom whispered, "Sweetheart," but her voice cracked. I stepped closer, my heart pounding hard enough to blur my vision. "There were footprints in the hallway last night," I said. "Bare footprints. Someone was outside my door." My dad's jaw clenched. A tiny twitch in his cheek told me he already knew. He stood slowly, rubbed the back of his neck, the way he did when overwhelmed. "We didn't want to tell you," he said quietly, "because you only came home for a few days. We didn't want to drag you into it." "Into what?" I snapped. "Tell me." He gestured for me to sit. This time, I did. My legs weren't exactly reliable anymore. My dad said, 3 nights ago, someone tried to get into the house." He said it like the words exhausted him. I felt cold spike through my chest. "Tried?" I repeated. My mom finally looked at me. She nodded. "Your father found the kitchen window open at 2 in the morning. The screen was on the floor. But that wasn't the first time," my dad added. "We've been hearing things. Small things. At first we thought it was animals. Raccoons, maybe a fox. But then we started noticing signs." "Signs?" I asked. My mom swallowed. "Footprints. In the yard. Around the house. Sometimes under the bedroom windows." My stomach twisted. "Why didn't you call the police?" "We did," my dad said. "Twice. They came out, checked everything. said they didn't see anything. Told us it was teens. Or our imagination. But it wasn't, my mom whispered. You should have called me, I said. We didn't want to worry you. I let out a humorless laugh. Mom, someone broke into my room last night. My dad ran his hands over his face. Looked old. Worn thin. I know, he said. I saw the lock. I tried to fix it before you arrived. But the metal's twisted. Like someone used a crowbar or... No, I cut in. The scratches. They weren't from tools. Silence. Heavy. Telling. I pushed back from the table, pacing. So someone's targeting you. Or us. But why? What do they want? We don't know, my mom whispered. They never take anything. They just come close to the house. Too close. My chest tightened. And you didn't think to warn me? We didn't want you to stay away, my dad said. It's Christmas. We thought. Maybe if we acted normal, it would stop. I shook my head. And last night? You didn't hear the footsteps? They looked horrified. No, my mom said. We didn't hear anything. I didn't tell them about the breathing. Not yet. Not until I understood what they weren't saying. I sat again. Forced myself calm. Okay, I said. Tell me everything. From the beginning. My parents exchanged a long, troubled look. Then my dad nodded. It started around Thanksgiving, he said. The first sign was small. Your mother noticed food missing from the shed freezer. A whole roast. I frowned. Could have been an animal. That's what we thought. Until we saw the footprints the next morning. My pulse quickened. What kind of footprints? Bare, he said. Just like the ones you saw. In the frost. Nausea crawled up my throat. It gets worse. My mom's hand trembled as she reached for his. 3 nights after that, she whispered. Your father heard someone outside your window. The same room you slept in last night. He went out with a flashlight. My dad's voice deepened. Dark. And someone was standing at the tree line. Watching the house. When I shined the light on them. They didn't move. Didn't run. Just stood there. A chill rolled through me. What did they look like? He shook his head. Too dark. Just a silhouette. Tall. Taller than me. And thin. Hunters don't watch houses, my dad said. Lost people don't come back night after night. I pressed a hand to my forehead. Nothing made sense. Bare footprints. Watching from the woods. Trying to come inside. Coming right to my door. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Then my mom whispered. Last night, before you got here. We both woke up around 3. We didn't talk about it. Because we didn't want to scare each other. But we felt it. Felt what? I asked. My dad lifted his eyes. The house, he said. Something moved through the house. Not footsteps. Not noises. A presence. Something had already been inside. Before I arrived. Before the window. Before the footprints. My throat tightened. Words wouldn't come. Then my dad said softly, We're not dealing with a simple intruder. And even though he didn't say more, I already knew. Whatever was in that house, whatever stood outside my door, wasn't done with us. I don't know how long the three of us sat at that table after my dad said those words. But the air in the room felt heavier with every second that passed. Like the house itself was listening. Like it didn't want us talking about it. I kept replaying the night before in my mind. The footsteps. The breathing outside my door. The warm air in the hallway. And suddenly those faint sounds felt louder. More deliberate. Not just someone wandering. Someone approaching. Someone who wanted to be near me. Close. I pushed back my chair and said, "We're not staying here alone. We need to call someone. The sheriff. A neighbor. Anyone." My dad shook his head immediately. "They'll think we're paranoid. Again." "I don't care how we sound," I said. "Someone is stalking this house. And now they're breaking in." He didn't argue. That scared me more than anything. The man who used to lecture me about overreacting didn't argue. My mom stood up suddenly, almost knocking her chair over. "We should get out," she said. "Just go. Drive into town. Get a hotel. Just for a night." "Right," I said. "We'll." But the moment I started toward the front door, she grabbed my arm with surprising force. "No. Not through there." I stared at her, confused. "What? Why not?" Her hand tightened. "Because." She swallowed hard. "He tries the front door. Every night." The words hit me like a cold slap. "How do you know that?" My dad's voice had gone quiet. "We hear the handle. Turning. Slow. Like he's testing it." I felt sick. "So you knew he was trying to get inside, and you didn't replace the lock? Didn't add anything?" "We did," my dad said. "I installed a deadbolt. A new one. But 2 nights later, I found deep scratches in the metal. Like something was working at it." My heart hammered. "Tools?" He hesitated. "No. Not tools. The marks were too narrow. Like fingertips." A shiver crawled down my spine. I wanted to deny it. Say it wasn't possible. Say he'd misseen the marks in the dark. But then I remembered the prints. Bare feet. In winter. And the breathing. And the warmth outside my door. Someone wasn't just stalking them. Someone was comfortable here. Familiar. My mom released my arm and wrapped her arms around herself, rubbing her hands up and down like she was freezing even though the heater was running. "He only tries the door when it's dark," she whispered. "Not in the morning. Not in the daytime." "So?" I asked. "We go now. While it's light out." But then something occurred to me. The kind of realization that slides into your mind like a blade. If he broke into the house last night. If he stood outside my door. If he'd been inside before. Why hadn't he taken anything? Why hadn't he taken us? What was he waiting for? A thought flashed through my mind, awful, instinctive, primal. I didn't say it out loud. Not yet. My mom grabbed her keys off the kitchen counter with shaking hands. "Let's just go," she said. "We'll explain everything later." I nodded. I didn't care where. Anywhere but here. We moved fast, coats, bags, wallets. Moving like people who finally admitted to themselves that they were in danger. But the moment I stepped into the entryway, something made me stop. Not a sound. Not anything I saw. Just a feeling. Like being watched. Like something was leaning close, inches from my neck. I turned toward the staircase. Nothing. just the shadowed steps leading up to the second floor. But the feeling didn't fade. If anything, it grew heavier. "Come on," my dad said. "Let's go." I forced myself to move. My mom reached for the doorknob, but before she could open it, a loud bang echoed from upstairs. We all froze. None of us breathed. It came from my room. My room where I had locked the door. My mom whispered, "No." Then another bang. Louder. Like someone throwing their weight against the door. My dad dropped his bag. "I'm calling the police." But before he could take a step, the banging stopped. Not gradually. Just stopped. Silence spilled down the staircase like something alive. My mom covered her mouth with both hands. My dad held the phone but didn't dial, his eyes fixed on the top of the stairs. Then, we heard it. A slow, dragging sound. Coming from my room. Not footsteps. Not walking. Dragging. The unmistakable scrape of something heavy sliding across the floorboards. Something moving closer to the door. My skin crawled. My hands went numb. Then, the soft click of my bedroom door unlocking. My dad whispered, "That's impossible." But I heard it. All three of us did. The latch lifted. Slowly. Deliberately. I stepped back, my heart slamming against my ribs, my mind screaming to run. But I was rooted to the spot, staring at the dark top of the staircase, waiting to see what would happen next. When the door upstairs swung open, it didn't creak. Didn't slam. It simply opened. Smoothly, silently. Like someone had been practicing. Then came the footsteps. Not rushed. Not stumbling. Just calm, steady steps descending the stairs one by one. My mom sobbed silently. My dad stepped between us and the staircase, his hand shaking so hard the phone nearly fell from his grasp. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. Halfway down the stairs, the figure came into view. Just a silhouette at first. Too tall. Too thin. Bare feet. White. Filthy. Stepping carefully on each stair. Then I saw the hair. Long, matted, sticking to the sides of a gaunt face. The eyes were the worst. Wide. Unblinking. As if he'd been awake for days. My dad finally found his voice. "Stop." The man did. Right there. Midway down the stairs. Head tilted. Staring at us with that strange, unnatural stillness. My mom whispered, "Oh God, oh God." And then, the man smiled. Slowly. Too slowly. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. A smile that told me he'd been inside the house more times than we knew. That he'd been watching us for weeks. Waiting. Choosing a moment. And for the first time since coming home, I realized my parents weren't just scared. They were living with something they already knew. Something they hadn't told me. Something connected to this man standing halfway down the stairs. Because when he smiled, my mother whispered a name. A name I didn't recognize. A name she said like a ghost had just stepped into the room. The name my mother whispered hung in the air like smoke. I froze, unable to move. My ears straining to hear more. But she didn't say anything else. She just stared at him. That unnatural calm in her eyes replaced by raw, unmasked terror. My dad's jaw clenched. His hands trembling. The phone still dangling uselessly from his fingers. The man at the stairs didn't move. He just watched. Every inch of him seemed deliberate. Measured. He shifted slightly, and I realized his bare feet didn't just touch the stairs. They seemed to hover, light as a whisper, like he weighed nothing at all. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, to run, but every instinct in me screamed that any sudden movement might provoke him. Then my mother whispered again, barely audible. "It's him. It's been him all along." I finally found my voice. "Mom, what are you talking about? Who is he?" Her hand shook as she gripped the edge of the table. "We thought it was gone. Thought it left years ago. But it never did. Every Christmas, every winter, it comes back." I looked at the man, standing still halfway down the staircase. And for the first time, I noticed details I hadn't before. The way his eyes reflected the weak morning light. The faint scars along his wrists. The thinness of his arms like they hadn't felt human touch in decades. He wasn't a man trying to break into our house. He wasn't even a normal person. He was something else. Something patient. Something that understood fear. Thrived on it. And waited. My dad finally stepped forward. His voice low and controlled. "What do you want?" The man tilted his head, considering him. Then slowly, almost mockingly, he raised a hand. Not to strike. Not yet. Just to wave. Like greeting old acquaintances. My stomach churned. "You know him," I said, my voice trembling. "You know him?" Both my parents nodded, almost imperceptibly. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "It's been here every Christmas since your brother disappeared." I froze. My brother. Gone when I was 16. Missing without a trace. Every Christmas had been empty. Every holiday hollow. Because of that loss. And now, years later, standing in my parents' living room, was the same thing my family had never told me had been there all along. The man's smile widened. Slow. Deliberate. Knowing. He didn't need words. His presence said it all. He had been part of our lives longer than I realized. Lurking in shadows. Waiting for the exact moment he could be seen. My dad whispered. "It's always been him. Every year. Always watching. Always close. Never taking, but never leaving." I tried to speak, but no sound came out. The weight of it pressed against my chest. The terror, the grief, the disbelief. And then, as if reading my thoughts, the man moved. One careful step down the staircase. Another. He was coming closer. Slowly. Deliberately. But with an ease that made every nerve in my body scream. My mother sobbed quietly. "Don't make a sound. Don't look at him." But I couldn't look away. I couldn't stop noticing the details. His eyes. The way he seemed almost human until you looked closer. The unnatural angles of his fingers. The faint wetness of the floor under his bare feet. He stopped halfway to the bottom, head cocked. And in that instant, I realized. We weren't just witnessing him. We were waiting for him to decide. Decide if this year, this Christmas, would be ours to take. I wanted to move. To flee. To scream. But my legs felt rooted to the floor. My parents, too, were frozen. Paralyzed by years of fear that had built up around this recurring presence. Then he spoke. Not loudly. Not fully formed words. Just a whisper, echoing as if from all corners of the house at once. Finally, awake. And in that moment, I understood. Nothing about this year's Christmas would ever be normal again. For a second, none of us breathed. His whisper felt like it seeped into my skin, like it wasn't meant for my ears, but for something deeper, some part of me that had been dormant until that moment. My mom whimpered, turning her face into her hands, rocking back and forth like she had done this before, like she knew what came next. My dad finally forced himself to move, stepping in front of us with a trembling bravado that broke my heart. "You need to leave," he said, voice cracking. "You don't belong here." The man didn't blink, didn't flinch. He just smiled, whiter now, revealing teeth that looked too small, too flat, like someone had filed them down. My stomach lurched. "You know what it wants," my mother whispered to my father, her voice raw. "You know what it came back for." "Not this time," my dad said. "Not my family. Not again. Again." That one word hit me like a punch. Before I could ask, before I could demand an explanation, the man moved. Not fast. Not lunging. Just stepping off the last stair as though he'd been given permission. His bare foot touched the hardwood, and something in the air shifted, like the temperature dropped 10 degrees in an instant. My dad raised the phone, thumb hovering over the screen. "I'm calling the police." The man laughed. A dry, rasping sound, like air passing through old paper. His shoulders shook with it, though his face stayed perfectly still. Then, with 2 slow steps, he moved closer. Close enough that I could smell him. Damp earth, rotting leaves, something metallic like old blood. I gagged, stumbling back. But he didn't even glance at me. His eyes were locked on my father, deliberate, hungry, almost curious. My dad stood his ground, though I could see his hands trembling. "Stay back." The man tilted his head. Then he whispered, "Where is he?" He. My brother. The name my mom had spoken upstairs. I felt the world tilt. "You think we know?" my father said, voice breaking. "You took him from us. You took our son." The man blinked slowly, like he didn't understand the accusation. Or worse, like he remembered and enjoyed it. His gaze drifted to my mother, fixing on the way she trembled, on the way she clutched the table edge as if holding herself together. "She remembers," he murmured. Those 2 words nearly dropped her to the floor. "Stop," my dad said, stepping closer, blocking him. "You're not touching them." The man slowly lifted his hand. Long fingers, grayish nails, skin stretched thin like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. He touched the center of my father's chest with 1 finger. Just 1. My dad went still. Completely still. "Dad?" I whispered. My father's eyes widened. And I swear, just for a second, I saw something like recognition flicker across the man's face. As if he remembered this moment from a long time ago. As if he'd done it before. My dad stumbled backward, gasping. He didn't fall, but his breath came out in a sharp wheeze. And he clutched his chest. "Leave him alone." I shoved myself between them before I even understood what I was doing. My hands shook violently, but I kept my arms out, blocking my father from the thing that shouldn't have been human. The man turned his attention on me. His eyes were wrung up close. Too dark, like pupils stretched out to erase the iris. He leaned in, sniffing the air near my cheek. I flinched back, but he followed, inhaling again. A rattling sound like old lungs struggling to expand. His lips curled into a grin that reached all the wrong places. "You came back," he said, almost tenderly. "You always come back." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" He reached out and ran one long finger along my cheek. My mom screamed. I jerked away. But he didn't grab me. He didn't need to. The room felt like it was shrinking around him. You're the last, he whispered. The last what? I didn't ask. I couldn't. I could barely breathe. My dad managed to pull himself upright, pain etched across his face. Get away from my child. The man looked at him, amused. Your child isn't yours. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? I gasped. He took a single step back toward the stairs. Ice locked on me even as his body shifted away. Ask them, he said softly. Ask why they hide the truth every winter. Ask why they buried the wrong one. My mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing. My dad looked like the life had drained out of him. Neither looked surprised. Neither said a word. I felt my legs shaking, my breath catching in my throat. I don't understand, I whispered. The man smiled like he'd been waiting for that question for years. You should, he said. You of all people. Then he took another step up the stairs, as calm as if he were slipping back into a room he owned. He stopped at the landing, turned his head, and whispered so softly I almost thought I imagined it. 6 years ago. The snow, the ice, the river. My heart stopped, because I remembered those things. Not fully, just flashes. Cold water, white sky, a hand slipping from mine. The man stared at me, eyes hungry. You should have drowned, he whispered. But he did. My breath left my lungs in a silent gasp. No, that wasn't possible. I'd survived that winter accident barely. But I remembered it. I remembered the rescue, the hospital, the police saying my brother had vanished upstream. But this man, this thing, looked at me like I was the imposter. Like I wasn't the one who was supposed to survive. My dad finally broke, slamming his hand against the wall. Stop. Stop talking to them. You don't get to twist our lives. You don't get to take another child. The man paused at the top of the stairs. His voice turned soft, almost pitying. I never took anything, he said. You lost him. You buried him. And you never told the truth about the one who crawled back out. The world around me tilted, the floor buckling beneath my feet. I grabbed the table to keep myself standing. My mom sobbed harder. My dad wouldn't look at me. I felt something pulling memories from the back of my mind. Flashes I'd buried deep. Details I'd never connected. Moments that suddenly didn't make sense anymore. The man stepped into the shadows at the top of the stairs. His voice drifted down like a final whisper. This year, I've come for what survived. The house was silent again. But the silence wasn't relief. It was waiting. Heavy. Like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Like the air had thickened overnight. My parents sank into chairs, exhausted and broken in ways I didn't fully understand. I stood frozen in the middle of the living room, still seeing the faint outline of him in my mind. The long, matted hair, the bare feet, the eyes that never blinked. I finally spoke, voice shaking. He's gone. My dad shook his head slowly, staring at the floor. Gone for now. But he'll be back. Every winter. Every Christmas. And he always knows. I felt bile rise in my throat. Why us? Why our family? My mother's hands trembled as she gripped mine. It's not just us. It's the pattern. It's generations. Every time someone survives what he claims, he comes back. To finish it. To remind us. I swallowed hard. I wanted to ask how many more were missing. How many more disappeared before they got him out of their lives. But there was a fear in my chest so deep it squeezed my lungs. The room felt smaller. The shadows closer. The air sharp and cold against my skin. The next hours were slow, painfully deliberate. We didn't speak much. My parents moved through the house quietly, checking locks, windows, the perimeter, while I sat in the corner trying to make sense of what had just happened. I couldn't. Not completely. The rational part of me wanted police reports, investigation, evidence. But the irrational, gut-deep part of me knew there were things that couldn't be caught or explained. By late afternoon, light spilling weakly through the windows, my dad finally sat across from me. "Listen," he said, voice low. "You're safe for now. But you need to understand. You can never fully trust the house. Or the season. Or the quiet." I nodded, though I didn't understand half of it. My mother joined us, pulling a blanket around my shoulders. She whispered, "We survived this year. That's all we can do. Stay alive. Keep each other alive. That's all." The day faded into evening, and the strange warmth and presence of the man lingered in the corners of my mind. Every shadow looked like him. Every creak of the floor made me jump. Even the tree in the living room, with its flickering lights, seemed to shiver like it knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept the lights on, listening to the house, straining to hear anything unusual. But it was quiet, almost too quiet. My parents slept fitfully, haunted expressions etched into their faces. And I realized that this Christmas, the one I had once loved, had become a marker. A warning. Morning came, pale and gray. The snow outside was untouched, perfect, silent. The kind of snow that makes the world look innocent, masking the darkness underneath. I stood by the window, watching the trees, knowing that somewhere out there, he was waiting. Not angry. Not rushing. Just patient. Knowing that eventually, he would return. I walked through the house one last time before leaving, touching the walls, the windows, my brother's old room. Everything looked normal. Everything felt normal. But I knew better. I stepped outside, snow crunching beneath my boots. And for the first time, I truly understood my parents' fear. It wasn't just the man on the stairs. It was the memory. The pattern. The waiting. It was the realization that some things never leave. That some horrors are cyclical, returning like the seasons, haunting every generation. As I drove away, the owl shrinking in my rearview mirror, I promised myself I would never forget. Not the footprints. Not the warmth in the hallway. Not the eyes. Not the whispers. Not the cruel patience of something that had been here all along. And I knew, deep in my bones, that this Christmas wasn't over. It would come back. Every year. Until someone finally remembered the truth. I didn't look back again. The snow fell silently behind me.